Imagine this: France, early 1700s. The kingdom is drowning in debt, the treasury is empty, and the people are desperate. The Sun King, Louis XIV, has just died, leaving behind a financial black hole. The situation seems hopeless. But then, a charismatic Scotsman named John Law arrives in Paris with a revolutionary idea. He promises to not only save France from bankruptcy but to make it the wealthiest nation on earth. How? With paper money and a company tied to a land of untold riches across the ocean, Louisiana. This is the story of the Mississippi Scheme, one of history's most spectacular financial bubbles, and a cautionary tale that echoes to this day. John Law was a fascinating character. He was a brilliant mathematician, a notorious gambler, and a convicted murderer who had escaped a death sentence in England. He believed that a country's wealth wasn't in gold or silver, but in its trade and commerce. His big idea was to replace metal coins with paper money, controlled by a national bank. This, he argued, would stimulate the economy, make credit easier to get, and unleash France's true potential. The Regent of France, the Duke of Orleans, was in a tight spot and willing to try anything. So, in 1716, he gave Law the green light to establish the Banque Generale, France's first national bank. At first, it was a stunning success. The bank issued paper notes that were redeemable for gold and silver, and people loved the convenience. The French economy started to show signs of life. But this was just the beginning of Law's grand plan. His next move was to create a trading company with a monopoly on all French trade with its North American colony, Louisiana. He called it the Mississippi Company. Now, here's where the story gets wild. Law painted Louisiana as a paradise on earth. His marketing campaign was pure genius. He described a land overflowing with gold, silver, and precious gems. Mountains of emeralds were just waiting to be picked. The native people were supposedly eager to trade their treasures for cheap European trinkets. Maps were drawn showing bustling cities and rich mines, even though Louisiana was mostly undeveloped swamp and forest. He was selling a dream, and the people of France bought it, hook, line, and sinker. To fund the company, Law started selling shares. And this is where his two creations, the bank and the company, became dangerously intertwined. The price of Mississippi Company shares started to climb. As it did, Law printed more and more money through his bank, making it easy for people to borrow and buy even more shares. It created a feedback loop. More money meant higher share prices, and higher share prices made people feel richer, so they spent more, stimulating the economy. The hype was unbelievable. People from all walks of life, from dukes and duchesses to butchers and bakers, clamored to buy shares. The street in Paris where the shares were traded, Rue Quincampoix, became a chaotic, non-stop stock market. Fortunes were made overnight. A servant might become a millionaire in a week. The word millionaire was even coined during this time to describe the new class of super-rich created by the bubble. People sold their homes, their family heirlooms, anything they could, just to get a piece of the action. The price of a single share skyrocketed from 500 livres to over 10,000 livres in just a couple of years. At its peak, the Mississippi Company's value was more than the entire French economy. John Law became the most powerful man in France, appointed as the Controller General of Finances. He had essentially privatized the entire French national economy. But here's the problem with bubbles: they always burst. The wealth was an illusion. It was all on paper, based on the supposed value of a distant, undeveloped land, and fueled by an ever-increasing supply of paper money. There were no mountains of gold in Louisiana. The company wasn't generating any real profits to justify the insane share prices. a few smart investors started to get nervous. They quietly began to cash out, trading their paper shares and banknotes back for real gold and silver. This started a trickle, which soon became a flood. As more people tried to convert their paper fortunes into precious metals, the demand on Law's bank became overwhelming. Law tried everything to stop the panic. He devalued gold to make his paper money look more attractive. He made it illegal to own more than a small amount of gold or silver. He even banned the sale of jewelry. But it was no use. Confidence had been shattered. The panic hit its peak in 1720. Mobs of angry investors, now facing ruin, swarmed the bank, demanding their gold. The system collapsed. The share price of the Mississippi Company plummeted, wiping out fortunes as quickly as they had been made. People who thought they were millionaires one day found themselves beggars the next. The French economy, which had seemed so vibrant just months before, was now in ruins, saddled with even more debt and worthless paper money. The fallout was catastrophic. France was thrown into a deep economic depression. The public's trust in paper money and public finance was destroyed for generations. In fact, this disaster is one of the reasons France was so slow to industrialize compared to Britain. The common people, who had lost everything, were filled with rage against the financial elite and the monarchy that had allowed it to happen. Many historians argue that the deep-seated anger and mistrust sown by the Mississippi Scheme were a contributing factor to the French Revolution decades later. And what about John Law, the architect of it all? He went from being the hero of France to its most hated villain. He was forced to flee Paris in disgrace, disguised as a commoner. He lost his entire fortune and spent the rest of his life wandering Europe, eventually dying in poverty in Venice. The man who had briefly held the entire economy of France in his hands ended his life just as he began it. A gambler who had finally lost his biggest bet. The story of the Mississippi Scheme is more than just a historical anecdote. It's a powerful lesson about greed, hype, and the dangers of disconnecting financial markets from real-world value. We see echoes of it in the dot-com bubble of the late 90s, the housing crisis of 2008, and even in some of the cryptocurrency manias of today. It reminds us that when something looks too good to be true, it almost always is. The dream of getting rich quick is a powerful one. But as the people of 18th century France learned the hard way, when that dream turns into a nightmare, the consequences can be devastating. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this dive into financial history interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. Let us know in the comments what other historical events you'd like us to cover. We'll see you in the next video.